How we doing, everybody? Welcome back to the Skeptical Eye for the Paranormal Guys podcast. Today we're talking to Donovan, who's had a lot of experiences in the paranormal and actually traveled to the infamous HELLS Gate. Did an investigation there, and he tells us the story about that and how crazy of a time that was. So buckle up, everybody, because this is going to be a good one. Hope you're not afraid of ghosts, because this involves a lot of them. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back again. Got another interview. New Mexico, sorry about that. Another New Mexico native. We're going to be talking to Donovan here about his experiences in the paranormal. Hey, man, you want to just introduce yourself? Thanks for coming on.
Hi guys, my name is Donovan Yruegas. I got my own little small YouTube channel, but I'm happy to be here, happy to tell my story.
Excellent.
Hopefully that you guys, if anything happened to you guys when you were younger and it, affected y'all, maybe this will give y'all the courage to come out with it, because it definitely left a mark on my life, but in a positive way, I guess, because it kind of opened my eyes a little bit more to, what's out there and what could potentially happen.
Yeah, so you mind taking me through the, I guess you had an experience that really rocked you when you were a child, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And how old are you at this time?
I am about 5 or 6, about 5 turning into 6.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, just, I guess, take it away.
So I live in Roswell, New Mexico.
Okay.
And on the south side of town, there's tons of different apartment complexes. I was living with my mom at the time. It was just me and her.
Mm-hmm.
And we moved into this brand new apartment. I got my own room. I was thinking I was a little big boy.
Yeah.
Just enjoying it. It had a pool and everything. And a couple of I want to say like maybe about 5 or 6 months go by. Nothing goes wrong.
Yeah.
And one night, I vividly remember, I walk out of my room. It's about midnight. And I go to my mom and I say, "Hey, can I sleep in here?" She goes, "Why?" I said, "The little boy at the end of my bed won't share my toys."
Yeah.
And she looks at me and she's not very surprised. She goes, "Well, you're being silly. Just go back to bed. There's nobody in there." And I said, "Okay, all right." So I go back to bed, and a couple of weeks go by, and she wakes me up for school, and she's like, why do you have your Hot Wheels? Why do you have, your wrestlers in your bed? And I said, "He put them in there." And I remember this because I keep trying to tell her, like, there's somebody at the end of my bed. Yeah. And the thing that got me the thing that scared me the most is when I would peel my eyes, when I would squint my eyes, I can see the outline of this little boy. Mm-hmm. But when I would open them, nobody would be there. So of course I'm like scared out of my mind, and I'm still getting goosebumps now talking about it, because this freaked me out. Mm-hmm. So it would go on for a long time, and she would get frustrated, she'd get angry, and she would try to be patient as much as she could. She'd be like, "Well, maybe he's not going to come tonight." And I said, "No, he comes every night, but now it's starting to get to the point where I'm getting bruises." Mm-hmm. And people are thinking, "Okay, what's this lady doing to her son?" And my mom's never done anything like that. She's, always been, just a great mother. But people are starting to wonder, like, okay, what's going on?
Yeah.
And so that really started changing the way that she started paying attention. And it would be to where, she wouldn't have anybody at the house, because, my first thing would be like, "Oh, do you want to see the little boy in my room?"
Yeah.
Be like, "Oh, okay, that's a little weird. That's a little creepy."
Yeah.
And it got to different points where it would be, at first I could see, normal skin color, normal hair color. And then gradually, as much as I would squint my eyes, he got darker. Mm-hmm. But he also got bigger. And I was freaking out, and I was like, okay, it's turning from a little boy to something else. And I don't know what this is. My mom doesn't know what this is. Yeah. Obviously, something's wrong here.
Yeah.
So it just gets worse and worse and worse. And finally she gets a a priest. She sends me with my grandmother for a few days.
Yeah.
She gets a priest to come and bless the house, and he gives her a rosary. He gives her this little rosary, and he says, hide this in the middle of his bed. Do not let him touch it. So of course she puts it farther towards the wall so my little arms can't reach it. And she comes home one day, and the next thing I know is we're moving. Because what she says is when she came home that day, she came to check if I had touched that rosary, and she opens my door and she sees the rosary on top of a little pile of cars. And immediately she's done. She doesn't want anything to do with that place. She knows, she doesn't know a lot about the paranormal world, but she knew in that fact, she had pissed something off. It was not going to be safe if I went back in there. And so she does her own research. And then when I got older, she explained it. Apparently in that apartment, a little boy had been, you know, beaten to death in there. Trigger warning for anybody who's listening.
Yeah,
sorry.
I was gonna say, but I mean, yeah,
sorry. That he had been, you know, assaulted in there and everything. And I guess the previous family, you know, were in poverty. They couldn't afford to give him any, you know, the life that he deserved. And the only reason why she found that out is because I guess a older woman who had lived across in the apartment had kind of taken a liking to her. And finally, when my mom was like, this is the final straw, this is what happened, the older woman finally came out and said, all right, sit down, let me tell you what I've experienced. And then from there, you know, it's we'll kind of figure this more out. My mom really did, man. She kind of went like Elizabeth Warren on that. She was trying to figure out like what's going on, because she had never really experienced anything like that. And so for me to come out and be like, okay, this is what's happening. I can see this little boy who evidently probably, you know, wasn't a little boy. And she has nothing. She doesn't know anything like what to do. So yeah, that definitely affected her. That affected me, and that kind of opened my eyes more to paranormal stuff. And that gave her the acceptance, I think, because she didn't believe it at first. That gave her the acceptance more of, okay, now this is happening to my child. Obviously, there is something else in this world, and what more do we need to discover? So that's the first story I had.
And that was like the focal point. And so just a couple questions within that story, I guess. So so your mom had before that obviously never had any paranormal experiences or really paid much attention to that sort of thing.
She liked I was gonna say she liked the Blair Witch Project, but she didn't. She liked the movies. Like when I grew up, when I got older, she liked Jeepers Creepers and Saw. Like she liked that kind of stuff, but she never experienced it. And so she never truly believed like, oh, okay, this could happen. But also $1 million could fall out of the sky. Like she truly didn't believe it. And then finally from there, she's always been more accepting. I've never had to be worried like, oh, mom, I'm going on a ghost hunt. For her to be like, oh, that's crazy. It'd be more her saying, remember what happened, be safe. Things do come back. And so that's kind of how she's been.
And then moving on to the actual I guess ghosts and everything, when you were experiencing that and it turned from a little boy into something different, do you think that what you were initially seeing might have been just like a spirit or something disguising itself as a child?
100%. Like I'm still getting goosebumps now. I can see him, and that caused my fear of the dark. And a lot of people will say, well, why do you not like sleeping in the dark, completely in the dark? And I always give them either the answer like, well, I just don't like the dark or anything like that. It's because I can still see him at the foot of my bed. And it scared me the most because it was the outline of a little boy with no face. But I could see him. It's kind of like if you see a stranger far away, you can't see their face, but you know who that person is. I can see him and I could still remember it. But it's like I always knew something was wrong. And it got to the point one night where I felt like I was living a different situation. Like I was closing my eyes and I saw the little boy and I saw this adult come and grab him by the arm and yank him to the side. And once I saw that, things got a whole lot worse for me. Like that's when the bruises started. So I felt like maybe it was a spirit. Maybe it was just the normal spirit. And then it showed me what it dealt with. And then immediately all that fear started. Could have fed it, something like that. I don't know. But that definitely, that's when things changed.
Okay. And that's really interesting, just because like, when you get, you of course don't know how many entities are really moving around in there. And if they, just, I don't know, speculation, of course. If the, so the little boy, I guess, let's go back a little bit. He was beaten to death, right?
Yes.
And was this by like a family member, or just it was like mysterious?
I believe they said it was the father.
Okay. And so that would, then you could, I don't know if you believe in like energy imprinting or anything like that. And maybe like that's what ended up happening, was that trauma. Also, you have the child, but then you also get the darker side of it, which is to be the dad, which would be a lot of that, what you said you saw, like pulling him away.
Yeah. And that was horrifying because I didn't grow up with my father. So first off, I'm like, all right, this little boy's at the end of my bed. Who's that man?
And you're like,
and then just seeing that, and then it felt like a movie, man. Like I love the Conjuring movies, and I see the Conjuring movies now, and I'm like, oh, the special effects, or like my little sister who thank God she's never experienced anything like this. She'll be like, oh my God, these effects are amazing. And I'm like, that kind of memory imprinting, that's a little bit triggering. That's a little bit scary now. But yeah.
Well, that's interesting. And then, so I guess from there, how long, so then you guys moved, obviously. Was there anything that kind of lingered after that, other than just like the fear, or could?
I was afraid for a long time. I would be afraid. And there were a few instances where I think he was still there. So there was one time where it was me, my little sister, we were staying at my grandfather's for the, like every day during the summer, we'd go to my grandfather's, and, he had to go pay a bill. So he left us, and we had the vacuum cleaner. I don't even know why we had the vacuum cleaner in the living room. I guess we were cleaning. The only thing I remember is I went into his room and and I immediately hear the vacuum come on, and my sister bolts to me and starts crying, and she's like, I saw something turn it on, because she hated the vacuum. She absolutely hated it, but it just turned on and it was bent, like somebody grabbed it and started pushing. And she was like, I saw something. And I was like, well, what did you see? And she said, I don't know. And so obviously I'm like, well, you got to know what you saw. But then I thought, hey, I didn't know what I saw. So there would always be those moments, where I could feel something that he's here, or I could feel like, okay, something's here. And plot twist later on in the story, you're going to figure out why I felt that. And I'm like, damn it. I'm scared. I'm horrified. But yeah, there were always moments anytime that we moved, or anytime even that I would go to a friend's house or something, I would be afraid to be alone, or I'd be afraid to go into a dark place. Like even going to the hospital, like when my aunt was sick, sometimes, and this is normal for hospitals, I guess, to conserve energy, is a lot of the hallways are going to be half lit. So, there's going to be a section where it's lit, section where it's completely dark, and then a section where it's lit. And I spent a lot of time visiting, my grandmother and my aunt when they were both sick in different hospitals. And so I was used to it, but there would always be that moment where I'd be like, okay, there's something in there, and I'm not going to go forward unless I have somebody next to me. And it would, I know that my mom would probably get annoyed, but then she would kind of understand. She'd be like, well, look what he was through.
Yeah.
Maybe there is something there that I can't see. And so there would be a lot of times where I'd be like, wait. And then obviously I'd feel a lot better. And it would only take a few seconds, and I'd be like, okay, we can go now. And we'd go through the dark, and then we'd come to the light, and I'd be like, all right, cool. This next section of dark, it's perfectly fine. We can go through.
Yeah. Okay, man. And then, so then I guess at some point you obviously kind of came over your fear, or not came over it, but overcame it, but kind of learned to live with it. And then you ended up actually going ghost hunting it, like later on.
So I did. I wanted to learn more, not I didn't want to like ghost hunters it. I wanted to be more like, okay, I need to, this intrigues me. I want to learn more about it. Because there is something like, people can believe whatever they want. If they don't want to believe in ghosts, that's perfectly fine. I'm not going to judge you, but I do. And so I need to learn what is there, what in the real world is there, because obviously if energy can't be destroyed, it doesn't disappear, then where does it transfer to? And so I did become, and it would be anything. It'd be like, oh, me and my friends were gonna sneak out and go into these woods that supposedly are haunted and see what we can find. And then it finally turned into the experience I had in my third story that that we'll get to when we get there.
Excellent. But I guess just like, keep going.
All right, so I'll get into the second story now. So
Perfect. About
14 years later, I'm about 19. Me and my best friend in the world, we move out to this house, and he's a big avid ghost fan. His family is, so of course that's how we became friends. That and Pokemon and all that stuff. Yeah. So we become friends, and immediately we know, okay, maybe there is something in this house. Maybe there's a lingering spirit. And the first instant we got of that was when the night that we first move in, we had our girlfriends there and everything. Yeah. And he's in the kitchen, and I look up, and we had this little window cut out looking in towards the kitchen. And I'm like, dude, don't move. And why? And we just see these cupboards that are magnetic. One just starts opening, and I'm like, so is that why the rent's cheap? And so he starts, I'm like, we're like, I was like, that might be why the rent's a little cheaper. Wow. So things happen, and we start getting a lot of this paranormal activity, and I'm like, really, again? Like another instance. And the girl I'm dating at the time, she moves in, and she didn't really believe in ghosts. Yeah. So it starts affecting her more than it affected any of us. Yeah. To one point one day, and I remember this like crazy because I was at my job, and I'm texting her, and she goes, somebody's in the house. And I go, okay, well, move all of our stuff. I'll call the police, this, that, and the other. And she's like, but it's weird because the footprints will go 1, 2, 3, stop. 1, 2, 3, stop. And I was like, okay, that's a little weird. And I didn't think of ghosts at the time. And she goes, my roommate, he had this little Chewini named Roach. And Roach had this little, like this, not even little, it's like this giant bell. So we knew where he was because he liked to run out. And so I was like, okay. And she goes, well, Roach is trying to get in because she can hear scraping on the door. Yeah. And so I said, call me. And so she calls me, and I can hear the scraping, what sounds like little paws. And I was like, okay, well, one, don't open the door because Roach isn't at the house. And she goes, okay. And I said, where's the bell? And she immediately stops.
Oh,
She
yes, there's no, yeah.
Yeah, there's no bell. And I said, where's the bell? And she goes, what do you mean? And I said, what do you mean? What do I mean? Like, there's this giant bell for this small dog. Like, you got to hear it. And she just stops talking. And so I get a little nervous and she goes, there's no bell, but it keeps scratching. And the scratches went louder to where I could hear them on the phone. And I said, all right, cool. Just put this right here, barricade yourself. I'll be home in like 10 minutes.
Dang.
Well, thank God she had a friend who, she had one of her girlfriends who was like literally down the street. So her girlfriend came into the house, got her out. And that night we had his grandmother come and bless the house.
Mm-hmm.
And we walk outside because his grandmother's like, I need to check everything. I need to see every inch of this house. So we walk outside, and right next to the kitchen, right where the bathroom is, because it was a weird house. Like the bathroom extended or the walls of the bathroom extended a little bit towards the back. Moths, tons of moths, all like pinned on. And I hate moths. I hate moths. I call them like hell butterflies. Like, I hate moths, all on the side of the wall.
Yeah.
And he looks at me and he's like, that's not good. And I go, and I don't remember this. I don't remember like why they're not good. And he goes, well, remember, like, moths, like, or he went like some like Catholic or Irish way. And he goes like, moths are attracted to evil. And she looks at me and she's like, okay, Donovan, even if they're not attracted to evil, why are they not going towards the light that's right next to them? And why are they going towards that wall? And I said, well, this is going to be an interesting, 12 hours.
Yeah.
And so we had tons of different things that entire night. I heard what sounded like somebody, because my room was next to the restroom, what sounded like Usain Bolt sprinting towards the door. Like, I heard somebody sprint and then stop at the door. And I got out of my room and I said, Chris, what are you doing? And he goes, and when I opened his door, he's dead asleep with Roach laying on him. And I was like, what are you doing, dude? Like, it's 3:00 in the morning. And I go, what are you doing, man? And he goes, I've been asleep. And I said, you didn't hear that? And he said, I thought you like scared yourself. And I was like, yep, something bad. Yeah. So I was like, no, I didn't scare myself. So I missed like the next 2 days of work trying to figure this out. He missed work. We were all trying to figure this out. And so that rosary, I was given 2 rosaries growing up. I was given one from my grandmother that was blessed by the church.
Yeah.
And can you remember where the other rosary that came from was?
Well, from the
little cards.
Yeah.
That got packed up with me. And my mom doesn't remember packing that up.
Yeah.
But years later, when I was living in that house, I was given the false idea that was my grandmother's rosary. Oh, so I kept it on my persons everywhere I went. When I call my mom and I'm like, hey, there's a lot of paranormal stuff happening. She got excited at first. Really? Until she heard the fear in my voice. She was like, oh, that's super cool. And then I was like, no, it's not. And she goes, yeah, no, it's not. And I said, hey, where's grandma's rosary? And she said, oh, the red one with the metal outline of the cross that was blessed by the church. And I said, no, this brown plastic one. And she goes, don't touch that. And I said, what do you mean don't touch that? And I said, that's grandma's rosary. And she goes, that's not grandma's rosary. That's the little boy's rosary. And I dropped my phone.
Yeah.
And I look at it because it's on my stand. And I said, what? And she goes, yeah, that's the little boy's. And I said, so you're telling me my entire life I've held this close to me every time that I've been afraid? And she goes, there's a reason why you've been afraid. And I was like, shh. So I was mad. I was angry. So we ended up getting rid of that. We ended up, blessing the house, getting rid of that. Nothing ever happened again.
Okay.
Nothing. But I could guarantee that walk to get rid of it, the walk to bless it, everything felt like a mile. It was like 3 feet, but it felt like a mile.
Yeah.
Because I'm holding this thing in my hand and I'm like, okay, so the girl I'm dating at a time has gone through all this craziness. My best friend's gone through all this craziness, but I really haven't experienced anything crazy. Maybe that's because it's knows, or it's feeding off my fear alone, that it's attacking the people I care about the most.
Mm-hmm.
And it was insane, dude. Like I'm very much a darker person, but I was pale at that moment, because I knew, I was like, this is bad. And so my mother hands me my grandmother's real rosary, and she goes, keep this on your persons. And like, one of the last thing that happens before I leave that house, before we get rid of the plastic one, is my grandmother's rosary shatters.
Wow. Okay.
I've never experienced that. Yeah. I cried because that was one of the last things I had of my grandmother.
Yeah.
But I'm holding it in my hand, and it had never been like washed or anything. It was wood beads with metal. So I could understand maybe if time had worn down, but we took good care of it because we loved her. Mm-hmm. We miss her. Yeah. And I'm holding it in my hand, and I'm like, all right, we're good. And it shatters. And I'm not even talking like bright breaks down like a video game stage. No, it goes.
Yeah.
And I hold it and I'm like, all right, cool. Now it wants a war. Yeah. And I'm not gonna lose this time. And I cried, and I was like, all right, cool. We're getting rid of this other rosary. And my mother, she comes and visits the next day, and she's like, so what happened? And I said, I don't ever want to experience that again, which then I did later on, because I got more curious. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was definitely a weird experience. And so about a year later, I went to that house and I talked to the new people that were living in there at the time. And I was like, hey, have you guys experienced anything weird? Nothing.
Okay. So then, it was definitely attached to you.
And I explained my story to them, and I was like, I'm not here to freak you out. I'm not here to scare you. I'm not here to be a weirdo. I just want to make sure that whatever that happened at that time is gone. And thank God that they were so cool.
Yeah.
Because some weird guy coming to you and saying, hey, do you got ghosts? That's a little weird, but they were so cool about it. They were like, okay, let's talk out on the porch. And I said, perfectly fine, thank you. Yeah. And we talked, and they said, no, nothing's happened. Nothing like that. Nothing, anything close. Maybe, they're afraid of sleep in the dark after a scary movie, but nothing.
Yeah. They never had anything actually come at them or do anything weird like that. Okay. Man. So then, so the rosary shatters, which is crazy in itself, but also like I've heard of, things doing that before. And I'm like, that means, I don't know, that was definitely something. And then, so I guess I was going to ask if like the people around you after that, did they ever have anything else happen to them, follow them?
Well, my best friend, his wife now, it was his girlfriend back then. She has a lot of experiences. Yeah. Definitely not gonna name the school, obviously, but at the school that she used to work at, she had a lot of experiences because she was the librarian. So of things that were similar. Yeah.
But like nothing really, I guess, like transferred over. It wasn't like
I want to say that something attached itself, maybe not in that house, maybe in a different instance, because there was something definitely that where she was working at the time, children would see it, books would be thrown, and it would follow her, but it wouldn't follow her home. So I don't know, maybe it didn't, maybe it was something new, but there was definitely an experience where she was calling us, calling him, texting me, asking me advice, or we're like, we don't know what to say to that, because there was something that attached itself or followed her, but wouldn't happen at home.
All right. And then, so how much time is in between, I guess, the second story and then the third story?
About 14 years.
Okay.
About 14, which is weird. But in that time, like I said, I would be afraid to sleep in the dark or go to dark places by myself.
Yeah.
Now I'm perfectly fine. Like I could walk into, a cemetery at night and be like, well, hit me with your best shot, because I've already
been through the ringer there.
I've already been through the ringer. Like, if it's gonna hurt me, it's gonna hurt me. If it's not gonna hurt me, it's at least gonna spook me. But there was a huge period in my life, about 14 years, where I would not sleep alone or want to sleep alone in the dark. Like I would be like, I would, if I had to, I'd be like, yo, like, does somebody got their eye on me? Or does somebody got my back? Or, dark alleyway, be like, oh no, let me make sure I have every flashlight in the world before I go. Because I did not like being alone in the dark, because I always had that feeling like I'm not alone. And that's what scares me the most.
No, that makes sense. Especially, it starts off when you're a child and you can't really, I don't know, it kind of like it plants that, like, primal fear in you. Gotta be, imagining, because I'm like, I don't know, I'm thinking like I haven't ever been afraid of the dark, and it's mostly probably because I never have ever experienced anything like paranormal at all. So I'm kind of like,
you're like, I'm the only one in the dark. And there was a long time in my life where I was like, I'm not the only one in the dark.
And you could see it.
Yeah. And it scares me. And now it's like, okay, maybe I'm not the only one in the dark, but if it's going to hurt me, it would have already done that. I wouldn't even have made this thought yet. So yeah, that was just my long part of my youth, all the way up until I was about 19, 20. And then after that, I was like, all right, cool. I could be afraid, but I'll just embrace it.
Yeah.
I'll just embrace it.
Okay. All right. So then, I guess what led up to you and all your friends ended up going to, the Hell's Gate, correct?
Yes. So,
okay.
So I can, do you want to give a trigger warning? Because I can give you the history of what Hell's Gate is.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a little graphic.
That's still, everybody. From this point on, we're going to be learning about Hell's Gate.
So Hell's Gate in Lubbock, Texas. So it's the train tracks behind the Lubbock Cemetery near Martin Luther King Avenue. So I was like, let's go to a haunted place in Lubbock, because my buddy moved there. And he was like, well, we have a department store that used to be an insane asylum back in the day. And I was like, well, that's going to be a lot tougher. Or we have this. And I said, okay, well, let me do my research to make sure that we're not, just going for no reason. So Hell's Gate is this hill that has a train track. Underneath it is just this open area with trees and everything. Like I'm describing it bad, but it's just like a prairie area with a hill that has train tracks.
Yeah.
Well, the train tracks, it's two hills, a bridge of train tracks that go over. Well, there is where they used to hang people, not for the wrong reason. Well, for the wrong reason, yes, but not for the reason that most people are going to think, because it's Texas. No, it's because of people that used to steal cattle, steal any crime. Or that is where train robbers used to throw the bodies of people that they killed.
Okay.
They knew where that area was coming. And they knew that I guess police or sheriffs at the time wouldn't go there for that reason. So it has a lot of bad energy there already.
Yeah.
So I was doing my research, and they have this giant angel statue in Lubbock at that cemetery. And it's for the first, I believe the first official police officer that was killed in Lubbock.
Yeah.
Well, the whole point is you're supposed to kiss the toe of the angel before you leave. We went there. I did not kiss the toe. I was like, we're going to leave. We're going to come back that night. We'll see what happens. The rumor goes is that the angel will keep you there. will trap you there. So you have two ways. You can go through the cemetery or you can go around this back way to Hell's Gate. So we went the back way. Obviously, like there's a park. Like it looks so cool until you get there, because there's a park and a lake and people go fishing. And then once you pull up, you're like, oh no. And it's so green and beautiful, but there's no animals. There's no birds. There's no squirrels. There's no rabbits. And I pointed that out during the day. I was like, there is not a single chirp. And my buddy goes, well, that's not weird. And I said, no, that's pretty weird, man. That's pretty weird. Like there's a ton of vegetation. There's a ton of this, that, and the other. I didn't hear a cricket. And I was like, that's a little weird, because we went the morning before to go scope out what we're going to do before we come back that night.
Yeah.
So we come back that night, and we were like, oh yeah, we're going to come through. So we come back towards sunset, and I was training to be, this is going to sound so weird, I was training to be like a professional wrestler at the time at the school that they have there. So obviously I'm wearing like cutoffs, my muscles are showing, I'm all excited, I'm like, yeah, look, we're going to do this. And this we see this like gangster looking dude come down with his friends, and he looks at us and he goes, you're not going to want to be here past sundown. And so I go up to him like, hey man, like that's not cool, dude. Like, what, you got a problem? And he looks at me dead in the face and he goes, don't be here.
Yeah.
And I was like, is there gonna be something bad? And he's like, no, you're safe, homie. But whatever that is that isn't the physical, that's gonna mess you up the most. And I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
I'm trying to like not laugh, and I'm like, what? And he walks away with his friends. And I said, all right, that's a little weird.
Yeah, ominous, right?
But we're recording, and we're like, oh, this is cool. Like we got that on camera, this, that, and the other. So on the train tracks, I had this little camcorder, and I put it on the train tracks, and I was like, well, this is supposed to be the most haunted part. If anything happens, we'll do it there. We'll catch it. I'll have it going all night.
Yeah.
And so we're the only ones there. It is like 9:00 at night. We're the only ones there. You can hear our footsteps. We can hear each other's footsteps.
Yeah.
Or so we thought. And it is the only one. So we're going through, and they have past the bridge on top. On the bottom are these two giant like walls of sunflowers, beautiful sunflowers, most beautiful sunflowers I've ever seen. During the day would be great to take a picture. At night, oh my Lord, it's horrifying, because in the middle it's just a dark path with sunflowers. And so I'm taking our second camera, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be amazing, this is going to be wonderful. And my best friend grabs me by my shirt, because it's me, my best friend, his girlfriend, who just now his wife, and then his little brother grabs me by his shirt. And he wasn't a strong guy, but I could feel that he's pulling with everything he's got. And he says, don't. And I said, what do you mean? And he says, I don't know what I just saw, and I'm not trying to act all scared for the camera, but don't. And I said, well, what did you see? And he said, I couldn't tell you. And I said, well, that doesn't make sense. Like, it's got to be a human or an animal. And he said, what if it was both?
Yeah.
I was like, that doesn't make sense, dude. And I'm trying to be like the comedy side. And he goes, and I could tell in his voice, I was like, all right, cool. We'll save that for later then. So we're there for like 30 minutes and nothing's really happening. And then I start hearing something, what sounds like something's hopping, something like with weight is hopping from tree to tree.
Okay,
and
so
I'm
in
like,
the trees.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was like, and of course there's that meme, they're in the trees, but no, it's like something was literally in the trees. And I go, all right. I was like, do you guys not hear that? And they look at me and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I said, look, those leaves are moving. And they're like, well, that could be the wind. And I said, that's weight. That's like if a branch moves up and down. And at my first thought is, I'm like, all right, so maybe there is some wildlife, like maybe there's squirrels or something, like maybe there is something out here. Maybe I was wrong earlier in the day. Maybe they're just, or it's Texas, so a possum, a raccoon, something. And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, all right. And so there's a slant going towards the hill where you're having branches literally in your face. And so we're like sliding down it, trying to, I'm more curious at what I see in these trees or what I'm hearing. And so at one point, right, the tree in front of us, I just see a whoosh, like a bunch of, like something's falling through the branches. I can see the branches moving. I'm like, dude, there's something right there.
Yeah.
And he goes, I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, you're messing with me, man. You're messing with me. There's no possible way you don't see this. And he goes, I see the branches moving, but not enough weight for anything to happen. So I get a little mad. And his little brother, there's a brook. There's like a little river down there, and it's pretty deep. It's about 5 feet.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't. Yeah. And he goes, can you not hear that in the water? And I said, I don't hear anything in the water. And he goes, something's splashing in the water. And I go, and I'm mad at him. I'm like picking on him. I'm like, oh, so you don't see anything in the tree, but there's something in the water. And he goes, Donovan, I'm not messing with you, man. Like, there's something in the water. I saw something looking over this ledge at us. Oh. And so at that point, I'm like, if there is something, maybe it's trying to separate us. With all that, I mean, it doesn't have a good history, that whole place. There were pentagrams everywhere, man. There was Latin written on these woods in spray paint. Like, there's obviously something. And so I'm like, okay, well, you're gonna stay with me no matter what, and your brother's gonna stay with his girlfriend, and we're not gonna separate.
Yeah.
And I was like, if there is something, if you're seeing something and I'm seeing something, the last thing we need to do is separate. Not even 5 minutes later, his girlfriend goes, I want to go back to the car. And I was like, well, if we die, at least she can escape.
Yeah.
And I make the joke. And so we send her back to the car. And where the car's positioned, you can see us climb up the hill. But where I left the camera, you can't see us because of these trees.
Yeah.
And so when we're walking her back to the car, we're walking backwards. Because I'm like, I don't trust my back towards all this darkness.
Yeah.
I'm getting that same feeling. And this was way after, I had already conquered my fear. Like, this is way after. And I'm getting that moment where I'm like, I don't trust this. There's something watching me. So we're walking backwards. And I wish I had the footage. And I'll tell you what happened with that. That scared us.
Yeah.
I'm recording and I'm noticing something. I'm hearing my footsteps, the little brother's footsteps, but I'm hearing a third set. And so I change my cadence. I go my normal, and then I start going wider. And right when I go wider, he goes wider, and we stop. And I was like, you hear that? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, there's something walking towards us that stopped also. But we caught that we could hear another set of footprints. Maybe that was a homeless or something, because we saw what looked like a murder scene after the fact. No body, but we saw tore up clothes, a tore up camp.
Wow. Like,
it looked like a bear or something. Like, I've seen claw marks, but I've never seen them so precise. Ripped through the side of a tent. And we did call the local police at that point. That was during the day, and we were like, hey, like, there's a homeless camp here at Hell's Gate. And the operator goes, it happens. And I was like, that's weird. And she goes, we don't normally with the homeless population over there, we don't normally send anybody out there, because most of the time they just find the remains. And I was like, are we in danger? And she said, I was like, are we in danger? And she goes, no. We've never gotten a report of like homeless attacking anybody there, but we only see the aftermath. And I was like, that didn't answer my question.
No, that's more questions than anything.
I was like, good on you for, doing your job correctly. But that didn't answer a single question that I had that day. And so we're going through, and we take her to the car, and I said, I told her, I was like, if you hear anything, you see anybody coming out the car, anything, honk, we will be right down. We got your back.
Yeah.
And so we're climbing up the hill, and we're all having fun. We're like, yeah, this is great. And you have to go through this chain link fence that has a hole in it before I could grab my camcorder. And this is what always comes back to me. At any moment when somebody can't explain something, I can't explain this. My camcorder's here, my hand's right here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm about to grab the camcorder, and she honks. And we sprint down. I was faster than Usain Bolt. I could have won us a gold medal, man. I was going crazy. We were running down. I don't even know how we survived, because we had to go down an incline.
Yeah, like a slip.
In boots.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, no, there's no way we should survive that without a broken bone. And when we get to the car, she's standing like frozen, and she's crying. And we get to the car, and we see, and it scared my mother, because I sent her the pictures.
Yeah.
Imagine a hand like this,
like a
across the glass.
Hey.
3 across the glass. And my mom goes, I sent her the picture, and my mom's like, and she found this. During the picture, when we got it, there were 3 marks, but there was also the imprint of a small face.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, well, whose face is that? And I was like, what are you talking about? And she went on Snapchat, she circled it. And I was like, I'm done. You found something I didn't. I'm done. Yeah. So we like zooming through Lubbock, trying to get back to his house. And we finally get there, and we're like, what did you see? And she said, I saw 2 things. So about 25 yards away, there's a stop sign, or a little sign that says like fishing here on Tuesdays from whatever to whatever.
Yeah.
And so she's like, I saw a guy leaning there, and he had a wide smile but no eyes.
Oh.
And she was like, I was like, okay. And she goes, what scared me is his head turned upside down. And I was like, oh, okay. And so she starts freaking out, and she said, I hit the horn, but when I looked to my right, there was another face, but it was trying to get in, and it left the marks. And I was like, oh no. Yeah. Oh God. And she was never like that entire night. She was not good. She had no emotion. She had no feelings. And so we had one of the cameras, we left one of the cameras there. Yeah. And so I was staying a few days over there, trying to get some extra training in. Yeah. And the next day, I grab all the boys. She goes to work. We're like, we're going to do this while you're gone, because obviously you were affected the most. We grab we go look for the camera. So I put the camera at the first railroad tie of the train tracks. Yeah. It's in the middle when we find it. Now, yes, somebody could have moved it. But 1, why would you not steal it? Yeah. And 2, why was it hidden? Because it was in between 2 railroad ties. So I guess when for a train bridge, they have the 2 on top and the 1 on bottom to, keep it stable. It was on the 1 on bottom. It was tucked away, and it had rained the night. And I was like, dude, I don't even know why we're coming to get this. Like there's nothing perfect. Worked perfectly fine. And I was like, that it survived through rain. It was hidden, and there was nobody else there when we left. And we left at like 10:30. Like we did not stay that long. Yeah. And they told us, like, if you won't last past midnight. Like that's all the articles, Lubbock Paranormal Society, all of them. They all say that you're not going to last past midnight. We didn't last an hour and a half till midnight. Yeah. So we look at the footage, and we're going through, and we can hear a few things. We can hear at one point we heard what sounded like growling, but didn't sound like a dog. We heard what sounded like, something was in the tree branches, and I laughed at the guys, and I was like, ha! Yeah, you got him. And and so we heard that, and we're hearing all these things. We're like, oh my God, like we can post this on the YouTube channel when we have it ready. Like we're so excited. And We all leave to go have like a celebratory dinner because we're like, we got things. We're excited. This is our first real ghost hunt.
Yeah.
And we leave, we come back, we go eat at this this bar and grill called Caboose. For anybody who's, if you ever go to Lubbock, go there. 82nd Street Caboose, great place. We go there and we come back and his entire PC is corrupted.
Oh,
everything.
damn.
And it was brand new.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's gone.
Dude, that's
blue screen of death. Nothing. And I went, what do you, I was mad. So I'm trying to like fix it, trying to figure out a way. And he's like, because I had given it to him.
Yeah.
It perfectly fine. Before then, perfectly fine. Weeks before then, months before then, perfectly fine. Brand new. Nothing's wrong with it. And he's like, well, what's wrong with it? And I'm like, I don't know. And he was like, well, what about the footage? And I was like, I just transferred everything onto the computer. There's nothing there. There's nothing. We're done. And he goes, what if we didn't do that? And I'm like, nope, I don't want to hear you say that. I don't want to hear anything like that. I don't care. I'm not listening. Ghosts do not control the computers. And then I watched movies where they do, and I'm like, maybe they do. But yeah, no, we lost everything. We lost the first album or first artwork we had for the channel. We lost everything. He lost photos of him and his girl. Yeah. Everything was on that computer and it all just disappeared. And in hindsight, we should have kept multiple copies, but we were still younger then. And we were like, oh, this is going to be awesome. Nothing's going to break while we're gone for an hour and a half, 2 hours. And then,
And that is crazy. And then, of course, just having you're wondering, like, maybe that's why instead of like, the camera wasn't totally gone. They're like, okay, well, if they find it, or well, they quote unquote, whatever it was is like, maybe, then they'll upload it and then I can destroy way more evidence or something. I don't know.
You know what, that could be it, man. But we didn't even get to that point. We listened, and there were a few points in that recording where you can see shadows going across the train tracks. You can see at one point it looked like a branch was coming down into frame, but it was distorted. It looked like a hand, but of a tree, like with tree features. Like it was old and brown and like it looked weird, and then it disappears. So we had stuff, like we had this amazing footage, and then we come back and it's all gone.
Man, damn. Because that's like, I mean, just like first, like all the pictures and just the experiences, like in general, are like just spine chilling. But then you go and you're like, okay, then there's something it's showing you itself, or it's presenting itself to you, but then also, I don't know, maybe making you crazy by destroying all the evidence that you thought you had. I don't know.
And not even a year later, I see this article on Facebook where all these people who try to act tough are like, Hell's Gate. Oh yeah, it's in raw. Like somebody had made an article about Hell's Gate and posted on Facebook. No, it was the Lubbock News. They were posting it, and people here in Roswell were sharing it. Yeah, and I was like, don't do it. And they're like, you're just, you're this, you're that. It's not even that scary. And I was like, if I had the evidence, you wouldn't go anywhere near it. And so I've been warning people, and even my own family, they're like, don't ever go back. And I'm like, I need to go back once to get the evidence, because all these people think that it's perfectly fine, that it's okay. But it's not. Like there's something there. If that is the one part of the city that has no gang violence after midnight, something's got to be there. Something has to scare people to where they are the hardest people in the world and they won't go. Because that's one of the safest places to be in the city after midnight. But that's also one of the most dangerous places to be after midnight, because the homeless population disappears when they go there. Or there's no animals there. That should be a sign. Like there's something there. And people go, well, if I can last till midnight, what if I go at midnight? I'm like, the later it gets, the worse it gets. And we just had probably the little pinky toe in the pool of what potentially could have happened.
Yeah. Yeah. And then and that's kind of crazy that you're talking about, that you find all that evidence of like, a homeless encampment being torn apart by something like a creature or some
It
kind of like weird
it
thing.
it looked like those videos on YouTube where like the bears coming through. It did not look like, if it was a person and it was a knife, it
Mhm.
looked way too symmetrical. Like the claw mark looked like it was from one thing.
Yeah.
The torn up clothes, but there was no blood.
Hmm.
No blood.
Yeah.
But there were torn up clothes. There were clothes that were in the water. There were packets of what looked like still like food, like they had food like this. And at one point we get a Cliff Bar to look at the expiration date, and it wasn't even for like a few months, so we
Uh-huh.
knew this had to be recent. That's why we called.
Yeah.
And it just looked like stuff that should be used in that time. Like we should have found the person.
Hmm.
And of course we even waited too. We were like, yo, if there's a homeless person, like obviously we're not going to put him on video or anything like that, but
Yeah.
let's give him like $10 for food, or let's go, get him something. Let's try to help him because he's out here and this is supposed to be haunted. And we waited. We were out there for a while during the day, and nothing, man. Like that's why we called, because we were like,
Hmm.
well, where's the body?
Yeah.
It looked like if I had, it looked like when Hulk Hogan like rips his shirt, like that's what it looks like, man. Like it was pieces everywhere, clothes everywhere, but no body, no blood, no footprints,
Hmm.
nothing.
Yeah.
And it was near the river, so there was mud. Like it was like this man just disappeared, like he just
Yeah.
dissolved.
And then even the dispatchers are just like, I mean, at some point they're just like, what are we going to do? We're not going out there ourselves. So,
Yeah,
because
like
yeah, you had said that she was just like, it happens and we just find the aftermath. And like, at first I was like, oh, like the aftermath of like stuff
yeah,
like that. Yeah.
like when she said the aftermath, I'm like, the aftermath of what?
Yeah. The word
Well,
choice there.
what do you find? What's the aftermath? What am I not knowing? And we even went to people at the mall, and we were trying to, ask them questions, not interview them, just be like, hey, you ever hear of Hell's Gate? And a lot of these people would be like, don't be there after midnight. Like that's the number one thing that was given overall,
Mhm.
was don't be there after midnight. And no gang is gonna mess with you.
Yeah.
And I was like, one of these isn't adding up, because one of them has to correlate with the other. So either we're there after midnight and a gang's gonna mess with us, or if like something's not adding up to me. And they were like, just don't be there. And so that's the one thing that hit the most, was that people just knew about this local legend but didn't
Mhm.
want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, all right, there's something wrong. There's something wrong.
And then, so through all of that, do you kind of have like a speculation, I guess? Would you, because it sounds, I mean, I don't know. I just like hear stories about the paranormal stuff, and it's like sometimes they're like, all right, well, they're, like maybe whatever it is, like manifests into like an actual creature or something. Like there's some sort of cryptid out there, or just there's such demonic or ghostly activity that, crazy things like that are just gonna bound to happen. Uh-oh. Uh, Audio went out for a second. Oh, there we go.
Okay, I want to say maybe it was, there's a ton of bad energy there. The
Mhm.
history from there is just horrible. um but the amount of pentagrams, the amount of Latin that
Oh,
was written
yeah,
on
yeah, you did
there,
say that.
the amount of stuff that you see, the amount, if it was a cryptid, that'd be a lot nice. That'd be a lot cooler, because then that's something new that's hiding in there.
Yeah,
If it's not a cryptid,
yeah, it could.
somebody did something out there that they shouldn't have, and a lot of people are going to get hurt,
Mhm.
or probably have.
Yeah, yeah. Especially, yeah, if there's like, I don't know, anything to do with like, people summoning things out there, and it's like you don't like. what are you really conjuring? Is it just like going to be spiritual stuff, or can it actually like cross over, so to speak?
Well,
Especially because you were
yeah,
seeing physical things in the trees, you were hearing physical things in the water.
we could see something that was following, or we could hear something that was following us. That my best friend's girl was had an experience where she couldn't. She doesn't like talking about it, and
Yeah.
because that really messed with her. Like she was just a wall. She was a blank slate
Yeah.
that night.
Shock, probably, right? Like,
It was trauma. It
yeah,
was trauma.
straight up.
And she's the most religious. She was the most religious out of all of us.
Hmm.
Uh, so I was like, maybe it targeted you because of your faith, because she had such hardcore faith, and
Yeah.
we were like, there has to be a reason. Like, there, it just didn't make sense. And at first, I thought, because when we went, we didn't see anybody by that
Hmm.
sign, and I was like, well, maybe they got scared when you honked. But when she said his head flipped, and I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, we're good,
That's some
we're good.
horror movie stuff right there.
And he's still smiling. I was like, no. Um, but it his grandmother, my best friend who helps us with the house,
Uh-huh.
she yelled at us so many different ways, because she was like, y'all knew better than to separate, and you left the girl by herself. And I was like, we left her in a 2-ton armored suit. If
Yeah.
anything, we could have fallen and broken our leg and died.
Yeah.
And she was like, it doesn't matter. Like, you left her alone, and she got the most scared. And I was like, well, what are we supposed to do?
Yeah.
We didn't want to leave 45 minutes into the investigation, and
Hmm.
we probably should have left 45 minutes into the investigation, but
Yeah.
I get to have that. So when younger people come to me and they're like, I'm gonna go ghost hunting, I'm like, be careful what you mess with, man,
Hmm.
because there are some things in this world that do not need to be touched.
Hmm. That's some words to live by right there.
There, yeah, I try, man. I try to look out for the next generation, because and
Yeah.
I'm still young myself. I still got a lot of things I need to learn, but from
Yeah.
all the experiences I have, I know that yelling at ghosts probably not the best idea.
Oh yeah. None of that. What do they call it? They're like, I'm invoking something.
Yeah, I'm invoking the spirit. I'm like, no, it's gonna come at you if it wants to, and if it does, it's gonna come at you whatever way it wants to, just like a human.
So then, if I guess just some like, since you've gone ghost hunting, you've had these experiences. What would you say to somebody who still wants to go out and do something like that, but like, what are some precautions? Obviously, and like, don't try and make the spirits mad, or,
Don't try to make the spirits mad. Don't try to Zach Bagan it. Love Ghost Adventures.
Yeah.
Love it. Do not do that and send one of your friends by themselves, because having to deal with that trauma, you feel just as guilty as they do. You feel worse than they do because you did it. Never go alone. Don't try to be Mr. Macho and go alone, because you still don't know what could happen. Like we saw a homeless camp.
Mm-hmm.
What if he was hiding? What if he, shivved us for our wallets? Like, you don't know. Make sure that you have enough batteries. Make sure you have enough cameras. Make sure that one of y'all's phones are at least charged, in case one of y'all break y'all's legs or something.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to be religious, don't be biased. Or try to keep that separate when you go. Don't try to be like, well, the good Lord, whatever you believe in, perfectly fine. When you're in a situation where it's haunted, that is their ground. That is their world. Whatever you say, that's still theirs. So don't try and be anything like that. Just be unbiased and be like, hey, whatever happens is gonna happen. It's gonna happen. But most importantly, don't do this alone, guys. And don't try and sit an hour by yourself and be like, this is great, like nothing's happened. Because if something wants to happen, it'll happen. And if it's not on you, then it's happening to the dude who's holding the camera, who's checking behind him every 5 seconds, because he knows for a fact he can hear something, or he feels somebody breathing down his neck.
Dang. Well, that's crazy. And just crazy stories, man. I love it. And that, man, the dude's head flipping upside down and still smiling. I'm just like, yep, that was it for me. I would have been like, just like her,
And
I would have been right out.
oh yeah. And when she honked the horn, man, that's the part that always gets me. That's the part that'll forever get me, is me grabbing that camcorder, almost reaching it and hearing the horn. And because I did sports in high school, so I was the
Yeah.
fastest one out of the group. I was the last one or the first one to try to grab the camcorder, and I was the first one to the car, because I was like, whatever she saw, it obviously spooked her.
Yeah. I think that it must have known too that you were about to get the camera. Maybe, I don't know. It's like right at that time, it's like, hey,
yeah.
So it knew when to strike.
Because there's nothing, there's no explanation we could get. And we even told her too, and she was like, what she saw and what was happening are two different things, and we can't explain it. Because we had this big flashlight, one of those giant yellow flashlights.
Yeah,
we had one of those, and we're holding it, and she could see it through the tree line. But at the same moment that she says that she saw it turn off, it was on because I was grabbing the camcorder. So out of nowhere, just something blocked that light. The head flipped. She was freaking out and she hit the horn. Like, all these coincidences happened at once.
Yeah.
And she was like, why didn't you leave when the light turned off? And in the car, I turned it on towards the ceiling, and I was like, it's still got battery. She said, then it must have went out, because it disappeared. I couldn't see the light for you guys. And I said, no, it was perfectly fine. Like, I needed that in order to grab the camcorder. I needed to see.
Dang. Yeah. Well, man, those are some crazy stories, man. You want to tell people where they can find you?
Yeah. So you guys can look me up, F-Class Heroes on YouTube. We're trying to change the world, trying to make things better by doing gaming, charity unboxings. If you guys like any nerdy stuff, future, we already have a couple of ghost hunts that we're gonna do in El Paso. We're gonna try and see if we can hit that whole area.
Nice.
You can follow me on Twitter at SwolTalku24. I post a lot about just the F-Class Hero stuff, just trying to do all that. And if you guys like any nerdy stuff, you can follow me on my podcast, Frame Rates and Face Locks.
Excellent.
We don't talk about paranormal stuff, so I'm gonna leave that market to my buddy. I'm gonna just talk about wrestling and video games, because that makes me more happy.
And yeah, everyone, if you could just go over and follow the links, go check out all of Donovan's endeavors. Some really interesting stuff if you're into all that kind of thing. And just what a stellar guy to talk to. So animated and energetic. Definitely newfound friend of the show. And how about that bone-chilling encounter that they had out at Hell's Gate? That is crazy. I know he said don't go out there, but part of me is really hankering for an investigation. So to all y'all skeptical eyes and paranormal guys, bring a buddy ghost hunt.